Hi, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I don't know whether you can see me.
Is that Mr. Amar Lal?
That's speaking, yes, hi. Good
Okay,
afternoon.
thank you. Thank you. I'm the chairman, Councillor Davis.
Hi,
okay, that's fine.
And Jennifer. And I can't see David Kennedy or...
No, well, he may just have turned his camera off, but I'll start the proceedings and then we'll be able to bring you in at the appropriate.
Can I just confirm, is my brother on, Mr. Pong?
I'm on the call.
Yes, I understand he is. Yes, he's shown as a number though for some reason, rather than I think he may be in by phone rather than.
Okay. I'll just speak to Palm. Are you there?
I'm here. That's correct.
Okay. Right, we have started live stream now, so the public are entitled to see us. And
is there anybody from? Sorry, is there anybody from the other side, Dex Bar?
Mr. Lamb, we'll deal with that in due course. I'm going through the procedure now. We'll introduce the parties, and you'll have an opportunity to speak later on. So thank you very much. We're now going to go into the formal process. I'm Councillor Davis, the chair of Subcommittee A. And with me today are my colleague Councillor Locke and Councillor Martin Straker-Welds. Before we start, can I ask you all to mute your microphones for the moment in order to improve the sound quality while I talk about the procedure? Can you also please turn off your cameras with the exception of committee members, unless you're the person speaking? This helps us reduce the bandwidth. So the members will remain on screen, but all of us should have the cameras and phones turned off. So if you could make sure that there are no external distractions, please, mobile phones off, situated in a quiet area, that will assist communication. And it's important, of course, that for obvious reasons, that those attending the meeting and making representations are able to hear me and members of my subcommittee and officers. Any distractions brought to my attention could result in the meeting being suspended temporarily or to another date and time under the regulations for these types of meetings. I can confirm this is a public meeting and is therefore being live streamed on the City Council's website in order that the general public can view it. Formal agenda, item 1, notice of recording webcast. I advise the meeting to note that this meeting will be webcast for live or subsequent broadcast via the Council's internet site, and that members of the public and press may record and take photographs, except where there are confidential or exempt items. Item 2, declarations of interest. Members are reminded that they must declare all relevant pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests arising from any business to be discussed at this meeting. If a disclosable pecuniary interest is declared, a member must not speak or take part in that agenda item. Any declarations will be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. Item 3, apologies and notification of nominee members. Apologies have been submitted by Councillor Beecham, and Councillor Locke was the nominated substitute member for today. So, can I welcome you to this hearing for an application in respect of Taylor and Challen, premises at 48 Constitution Hill, 3JT. First, some introductions. As stated previously, I'm Councillor Philip Davis. I'm chairing the meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee. As I indicated, Councillors Martin Straker-Welds and Mary Locke are with me today. Also present in the meeting are the following officers: David Kennedy, the Licensing Officer, Katie Townsend, the Committee Manager and Meeting Manager, and the Committee Lawyer, Joanne Swampilot. And now, if I may, can I move on to the external parties? And firstly, the applicant. I understand Ms. Jennifer Brenton, you'll tell me what you prefer, no doubt, is here to speak for the applicant today. How may I address you?
Miss is absolutely fine. Yes, good afternoon. I'll be speaking on behalf of Dex Bar and Grill. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And there are a number of other parties attending, obviously, as part of the team for the applicant. And you'll feel free to bring those in as you wish. Next, those making representations. And I understand Mr. Amar Lal is here. Mr. Lal, can you confirm?
Yes, I am here.
Thank you. And Mr. Palm Lal.
Correct, I'm here as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And again, I'll indicate when you can make your representations. Now, an initial procedural comment, which is usually about technicalities and so on. Could I ask if Ms. Brenton, do you have any preliminary points you wish to make at this stage of the hearing? Oh,
No,
sorry,
thank you.
wrong question. I've jumped ahead. Does any person wishing to make representations wish to withdraw those representations? So it's really a question to, I think, Mr. Lal, Mr. Palm Lal.
Nothing to withdraw.
No?
Nothing to withdraw, sir.
Okay, fine, thank you. So I think that deals with that. And I assume that all parties have read and understood the Licensing Committee's procedural rules. Please note that given the nature of today's proceedings, I may at my discretion amend the procedural rules to reflect the fact that this meeting is taking place online. But I want to assure you that all such amendments will not impact on the parties' rights to a fair hearing. We'll be using the chat function in Microsoft Teams as an additional means of communication. You can, however, indicate verbally or use the raise hand function if you want to speak. One of the icons on the on your toolbar indicates the chat function, and we're just going to use that now to register the presence of all those at the meeting. Don't worry if you can't find that or if you're on audio phone, but those who have this function, if you could just type in your name for the records. I'm going to do that for my own name now. Thank you for that. I'm now, I think we're now back on full screen there. So if you keep the chat column open, it's a useful method of communication. Can I just ask Mr. Palm Lal, are you dialed in by audio phone?
I am. I've dialed in through using my mobile, using your dialing conference number and then the PIN.
Okay. Are you hearing us okay?
Absolutely perfectly. Thank you.
That's fine. That's good. If there's any disruption, obviously the office is monitored just to see if anybody drops out. Then we'll immediately stop the proceedings because it's important that everybody is able to participate and hear what everybody else is saying. So thank you. Right, with the exception of subcommittee members, please keep your camera off unless you're the person speaking. If there's a problem with bandwidth, we may ask everyone to turn the cameras and sound off to restore sound quality. Okay, now I am on to preliminary points now. So if I may come to Ms. Brenton, did you have any preliminary points?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And again, to those wishing to make representations, Mr. Lal and Mr. Palm Lal, did you have any preliminary points? It's usually about procedure and so on. Was there anything you wanted to raise at this stage?
No, not for me, that's Palm.
Okay, thank you for that. And okay, I'll now briefly outline the process. Firstly, the licensing officer, Mr. David Kennedy, will present the report. Then the applicant and their representative will be asked to present their case. We'll ask you if you can keep that to approximately 20 minutes. Then those making representations will be invited to make their case, and again, approximately 20 minutes in total across the two persons is allowed. And again, can I ask all parties to speak slowly and clearly to assist communication? And if at any time somebody else is turned to speak, please mute your mic and use the chat function to communicate if that's necessary. Please note that members of the subcommittee will be able to ask questions at any stage, but we'll try not to do so at the conclusion of each presentation. Cross-examination by the applicant and those making representations will not be permitted unless the members consider it appropriate. Where questions are raised by members of the subcommittee or those present, you can signify this in the chat facility. In practice, I've said it's possible to indicate verbally to me as well. If at any point you can't hear or having problems with the internet connection, please use the chat facility to alert the meeting manager, and I can then be alerted and ask and take necessary steps to restore communication. Occasionally, it may be necessary for the subcommittee to take legal advice. At my discretion, I may ask all parties to wait in this meeting while members and the relevant officers withdraw to take legal advice using a separate meeting within Microsoft Teams. We'll then return to the meeting and continue. Please note, if at any time the live stream being broadcast on the City Council website fails, I'll ask you all to mute your microphones and cameras and to stop speaking until the live stream is restored. And if we at any time go into private session, the meeting manager will pause the live stream. Once that's over, we'll return and we'll confirm live stream has resumed before we continue. At the conclusion of the hearing, each party will be invited to make a brief closing submission. No decision will be taken until all evidence has been heard. At the decision-making stage, members and the relevant officers will withdraw from the meeting in order to determine the decision. They go into a separate Microsoft Teams meeting. In the event that members need to clarify any point, you'll be telephoned by the meeting manager. The members will then make their decision. Notification of the determination of the application will be sent out to all parties within 5 working days. Okay, I hope that's reasonably clear. And so with that, I'd now like to ask the Licensing Officer, David Kennedy, to present the reports, please. Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Chairman. Dex Bar and Grill Limited applied on the 1st of June 2021 for the grant of a premises licence for Taylor and Chellan, 48 Constitution Hill, ground floor, Hockley, Birmingham, B19 3JT. The purpose of the report is to consider a representation that has been made in respect of the application, which initially sought to permit the sale of alcohol for consumption both on and off the premises, the provision of regulated entertainment to operate from 9:30 AM until 5 AM Monday to Saturday and 11 AM until 5 AM Sunday, and the provision of late night refreshment from 11 PM until 5 AM Monday to Sunday. Following disclosure of the representation to the applicant's legal representative, they removed the provision of regulated entertainment from the scope of the application and reduced the hours for the sale of alcohol to between 9:30 AM and 11 PM Monday to Saturday and 11 AM until 11 PM Sunday, as confirmed in a letter sent by DLS Law to the objector dated the 16th of July 2021, a copy of which is published at pages 28 and 29 of the agenda pack. Whilst the applicant has formally reduced the hours for the sale of alcohol, they have not confirmed whether the proposed opening hours are to be similarly reduced, and also whether the provision of late night refreshment is also removed from the scope of the application. The representation is attached at Appendix 1. The application prior to being modified is attached at Appendix 2, and site location plans are at Appendix 3. When carrying out its licensing functions, a licensing authority must have regard to Birmingham City Council Statement of Licensing Policy and the guidance issued by the Secretary of State under Section 182 of the Act. The authority is required to take such steps as it considers appropriate to promote the 4 licensing objectives. The options available to the committee today are to grant the licence in accordance with the application as modified, to reject the application, to grant the licence subject to conditions modified to such an extent as considered appropriate, exclude from the licence any of the licence of activities to which the application relates, refused to specify a person in the licence as the premises supervisor. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, so on to you, Miss Brenton.
Yes,
if you'd like.
I do apologise. I've just received notification that unfortunately my client has dropped off the call. I wonder if we could just have a moment to see if she can rejoin. This was Safina who was logged in earlier.
Of course, yes.
Thank you.
So we'll just pause.
Not yet. Let me. I'm just going to try and ring through to her.
Okay, fine. We can always adjourn if there's any longer problem, so don't worry about that.
Chair, there's a message in the chat for you.
Okay, thank you.
She's just coming in, I think.
Yes, Chair.
Oh, okay. So we don't need to pause any further then, if we can just confirm. Let's just confirm that we're all here again. I can get back on the screen. Is your client back, Miss Brenton?
Yes, thank you. I've just received notification that she is back in the hearing. Apologies for the delay. I'm very grateful to your licensing officer, Mr. Kennedy, for setting out the position with regards to our application, and in particular for clarifying that the license which is now sought on behalf of Dex Bar and Grill is purely for supply of alcohol between the hours of 9:30 a.m. and 11 p.m. on Monday to Saturday, and 11 a.m. until 11 p.m. on Sunday. They no longer seek a license for regulated entertainment. They no longer seek a license for late night refreshment, which would not operate would operate only outside of those hours. And the opening hours of the premises will be similarly reduced in line with the licensing hours. Councillors, I have received and considered the representation that was provided by Mr. Lau, and I hope that you've had the opportunity to read the letter that was sent on behalf of my clients. in response to that representation. Mr. Lal has raised concerns about essentially about public nuisance, in particular noise disruption that may be caused to his tenants who work in the building adjacent, which operates as an office. In light of the concerns that he's raised, my clients have significantly limited the scope of their application in the terms that I have already set out. Councillors, to be quite clear, my clients intend to operate Dex Bar and Grill as a restaurant. That is what it primarily will be. It does have a bar, but I'm told that that bar will operate purely for table service, and so will not essentially operate as a sort of pub or bar-like situation. The total number of covers that they can have within the restaurant at maximum capacity is 280 covers. All of the service will be by table service, and as I said, primarily this will be a restaurant. They intend it for it to be a family restaurant, an asset to the local community, and they would hope that they would never disrupt their neighbours and would hope, in fact, that their neighbours may very well become customers. Councillors, obviously, you need to consider what is reasonable and proportionate in order to uphold the licensing objectives. It would be my submission that the main licensing objective raised by the representations from Mr. Lal would be one of prevention of public nuisance. However, it would be my submission that in light of the limitations that have been placed on the licence application, it is unlikely that there would be any issues with regards to public nuisance arising from this property. My clients very much intend to operate with all due respect and consideration to their neighbours and would never ever intend to disrupt the local area. If they are prepared, nonetheless, as was indicated in our letter to Mr. Lal, to offer some additional conditions to provide extra confidence to the licensing subcommittee and also to Mr. Lal and to his tenants that this premises will not operate in a way that will disrupt their enjoyment of their property. The additional conditions he's prepared to offer is to display prominent signage at entrances and exits, asking all customers to respect the neighbours and leave the premises quietly. They will also ensure that direct contact details of the manager of the premises are provided to all of the neighbours, so that if there is any issue at all, they can get into contact with the manager immediately so that that might be addressed. And finally, I'm aware that the neighbouring premises operates as an office, and therefore if refuse were to be taken out in the middle of the working day, that equally could be something that may disrupt their work, and they therefore would offer to ensure that all refuse is only removed at the very end of the day, which would be around 11 p.m, when it's far less likely that anybody would be working in the office. They have considered the position with regards to a smoking area. They do not expect that there is going to be a significant number of people gathering in a smoking area. It's simply not that type of premises. However, they are still intending that for any smokers who do come to the restaurant, there will be a designated smoking area at the back of the premises on the opposite side to where Derwent Works is located, and they will discourage anyone from smoking outside the front of the premises. We do not propose that as a condition, as the proportion of people that this is likely to affect is very, very low, but may I assure you that that is certainly their intention with regards to the way that they plan to operate these premises. Councillors, as I've said, obviously your concern is upholding the licensing objectives and in particular in this case the prevention of public nuisance. It would be my submission that in light of the limitations placed on this application and the nature of this premises and the additional conditions which my clients volunteer to the subcommittee, that the subcommittee can be absolutely confident that this premises will uphold the licensing objectives and will not disturb the local residents or the local communities. It is very much intended that this restaurant will be an asset within the local community and that neighbours, be they business neighbours or residential neighbours, will be encouraged to come to the premises as clients. They have no intention of creating any kind of difficulties within the local area and will strive to make sure that that does not happen. And it would be my submission that that is reflected by the significant concessions that they have already made with a view to hoping to reach an agreement with their neighbours with respect to this application. Councillors, those are my main submissions, but I'm very happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Councillor Martin Straker-Wells, any questions?
Thank you, Chair. and thank you very much for spelling out the concessions that have been made and the limitations, which will obviously minimise to some extent the issues around public nuisance. Noise, I suppose, is the thing that is uppermost in my mind, because I've read somewhere that there's a shared there's a shared wall, and your restaurant will have 200 plus covers. Apart from the concessions that have already been made, is there anything that could be done acoustically to make absolutely certain that noise does not percolate through that wall? Thank you, Chair.
Councillor, as I understand the position, this is a listed building, which is why the adjoining wall couldn't have further noise insulation, for example, which might provide some extra protection of any additional noise being caused to the neighbours. In terms of what we can actually reasonably offer, the suggestion is that condition be added to ensure that any neighbours have the direct details of a manager, so that if there are any issues or they do hear anything, steps can be taken immediately to reduce any noise that happens within the premises. The 280 person, that is the absolute maximum number of clients that could ever be in the restaurant at one stage. It's not expected that it's going to be operating at maximum capacity all of the time. And as I said, they equally will offer a condition to ensure that any neighbours are asked to leave the property quietly and to respect the local businesses. Unfortunately, because of the nature of this premises, that's as high as the guarantees can go at this stage. But as has been indicated by my clients, they are very happy to enter into discussions with the neighbours about any extra steps that they might take in order to minimise any disruption. But it is anticipated that the current licence, with the limitations and with the additional conditions, will not cause an amount of noise to any neighbours that would amount to a public nuisance.
Thank you, Chair. If I may, just one more question. There won't be any light entertainment, as far as I can see. No music, no additional noise apart from the sound of 200, possibly 200 and whatever it is, 80 people talking amongst themselves. There won't be any microphones, loudspeakers, or anything of that nature. But I would still want to ask whether the noise that can come from 280 people could not somehow or the other percolate through to the neighbours. But you're saying that they would have immediate access to the manager, yes?
Yes, they would have immediate access to the manager. To clarify the position with regards to any music, there may be background music that's played within the restaurant. Obviously, that would not fall to be regulated entertainment, but certainly there's no intention to have live music, for example, or any karaoke or anything that would significantly increase the amount of noise that will be in the restaurant. And as I said, the intention is to run this as a family restaurant. So it's very much not going to be set up like a nightclub. The music is not going to significantly add to the noise that's created by the restaurant. Unfortunately, as I've explained, we can't provide any guarantees beyond what has already been suggested about any noise disruption to the neighbours, but it would be my submission that the subcommittee can be confident with the limitations placed on this licence and with the conditions that we have proposed, that if there were any issue at all, it would be addressed immediately. And on that basis, that it would be reasonable and proportionate to grant the licence with the additional conditions, such that the subcommittee can be confident it will uphold the licensing objective of prevention of public nuisance. Equally, as I've indicated, my clients are very willing to enter into discussions with the neighbours about any further steps that they can take. This was indicated to them previously. Unfortunately, we received no response in relation to that suggestion.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Locke?
Councillor, excuse me, Councillor Striker Wells has asked a couple of questions I was asking. I wanted to know, will there be, with the reduced hours, will there be what they call like drinking up time for people to leave? And how long?
Well, the licensing hours would be up until 11 p.m. So obviously no alcohol could be served after 11 p.m. In terms of there being an absolute final closing time, I can certainly check that with my clients, but I wouldn't anticipate it would be significant in terms of drinking up time. The issue with regards to the neighbours, as I understand it, is about daytime working hours, as it's about the office, when the office is in operation and the disturbance that's caused to them. maybe less focused on the very, very end of the day. But certainly the alcohol will stop being served at 11 o'clock, and they wouldn't anticipate that customers would be staying much beyond that.
Thank you. Nothing else.
I think, Ms. Brenton, I know the answer to this one. If you've been briefly, you can tell us, though, whether there are any residential properties nearby.
Councillor Davis, I don't know the answer to that. My understanding is that it's mostly offices nearby, but if you give me just a moment, I can confirm whether or not there are any residential premises. Obviously, no representation has been made on behalf of any of the local residents.
Yep.
Would you like me to check on that point?
It's okay. Let's hear from the other representations first. But I am familiar with the area. It's not a particular matter of great concern to me. But let's move on, and we can hear from the other representations first.
Yes, thank you very much.
Is there anything else you want to add to your submission?
No, thank you. I think I've addressed everything at this stage.
Okay, thank you very much. That's very helpful. Okay, so we now move on to Mr. Parmlal and Mr. Amar Lal. Does one of you want to speak on to make your representations, or will both of you want to say something?
I suggested to Emma that perhaps we split the time, sort of 10 minutes.
Okay, yes. As you say, that's fine. Yes. So, okay, so who wants to go first?
So this is Parmlal. I thought I'd talk first.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Lal.
Thank you. So just to clarify the position of Nextdoor. So we run offices. We also run training counters there during sort of working hours, and there's mail order to sort of work that go on during the evenings as well, where they're dispatching parcels. So the businesses within the envelope of that building sort of run continuously. So it's not just a standard 9 to 5 office hours. So we understand you're taking away light entertainment. I mean, I'll get to the sort of the issue that we have. The biggest issue is noise emanating from next door. We have a party wall. I mean, we can hear people talking next door. We've been in this building since 1980, so we know the full history, the fabric of the building. Now, 280 covers, you don't have that at the moment, but we do hear people from next door. We've had issues with your construction work to date. You didn't adhere to party wall agreements. You've got enforcements from building control at the council for various building issues. There's debris falling through into our building. But the main issue we have is, there should be no breakout noise whatsoever from your building. Now, you mentioned it's Grade 2 listed. We fully understand that. We run a development company as well. There's no issues with insulating and soundproofing a Grade 2 listed building internally with soundboard, etc. There's loads of ways to do this. You mentioned you can't, but I'm just going to correct you. You can internally. So sound breakout noise from that building is our number one issue. In our opinion, there shouldn't be any breakout noise from the envelope of your building. It should retain within your building. It's good to know that you're not going to have any light entertainment. Background noise you mentioned, perhaps you could be a bit more specific about that. But more importantly, we'd like controls in place because of the relationship to date and the fact that, with your construction project to date, there's been many issues. A lot of the issues that we've raised were not addressed. We've just got no confidence in how this operation is going to be run going forward. So we're asking the council to put in some controls to monitor, number one, the noise breakout from there, any antisocial behaviour or issues we may occur due to alcohol consumption on the premises. We welcome the fact that you reduce the hours. We welcome the fact that there's going to be no light entertainment, and we appreciate that. But noise is the number one factor. There's another issue that I don't think anyone's aware of. Unit 3, which is adjacent to ours, has had some kind of planning prior sort of application gone in for conversion to residential apartments. So the noise impact that may be not imminent today will be imminent in the near future. So I just want to make people aware of that. I think they're the biggest issues. Two things on my list was noise and nuisance. They need to be addressed. They need to be conditioned because, like I said, we've got no confidence to date in how the building project has progressed so far next door. And, building control from the council can confirm that they've put endorsements on your building, which due to issues. So we just want level of assurances. We want conditions and controls, because if noise becomes an issue, that something needs to be done about it. Like I said, we run office and trading businesses from next door, and we just want to make sure that if those rules are broken, if things get excessive, that there are controls and measures in place to stop it. But I do feel that some kind of assessment needs to be made from a noise perspective, and that can be made whether it's grade 2, grade 1, or non-listed. And we just know that because one of the companies we run is Tier 7 developments. I think that was all the things I wanted to talk about. I think Amr might have a few points. If I pass the call on to Amr, then perhaps you can add further to this.
Okay, Mr. Marlar.
Firstly, good afternoon to all the councillors, and thank you for giving us this opportunity to present our matter forward. I would like to correct Jennifer Brenton from the representation side that there is not just one business in this building. There are several businesses running from this building. One of them being my own, and 3 others. The main issue we have is the noise. We understand that they are withdrawing the application for regulated entertainment, which we are happy to hear. But the main thing is 200 plus covers. Even if they was to speak very slowly, would be a lot of noise. Secondly, while the works was going on in this restaurant, we, having the next door joining wall, we could hear everything that was going on. Somebody used to shout in there, we could hear him in our unit. Somebody's banging away, we could hear him in our unit. We've had several incidents where somebody was sandblasting in that restaurant and all the dust came into our building. And we rang the owners, nothing happened. We had no cooperation. We have no faith in these people at all, to be very honest with the councillors. This is why we are requesting that measures, precautions be taken and put into place, that I can foresee issues going forward with this. 200 people or 100 people going into a restaurant, there's going to be a lot of loitering on our side of the building, which is directly next door to the entrance of the restaurant. There's going to be a lot of noise from the people waiting, coming and going. There's going to be maybe alcohol, people drinking alcohol, coming outside with their drinks. We may have people like Broad Street where people overdrink, vomiting, urination. What measures are going to be in place from the restaurant owners to make sure this doesn't happen? And if this happens, will the council come and clean up our site? Will the council take charge of this? So we have a lot of concerns on this matter, as you can understand. And regarding the point about residential, there is residential behind this property and in front of this property, because we are there 24/7, 7 days a week. So those are my points, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Locke, do you have any questions? Councillor Locke?
Yeah, what were the issues that were not addressed that you raised, when the work was going on?
Sorry, is this a question to myself?
Yeah.
Yes.
Issues were, when these works were going on, there used to be a lot of banging noise next door, number one. Number two, there is some sandblasting in the building to clean up the walls. All the sand or all the residue of the sand came through the walls. Basically, every time there was sandblasting, we used to have a thick smoke of cloud in our building. And we've actually complained to the council on this situation prior, and the gentleman called Mark Hill from Birmingham City Environmental Council is aware of this. And if you would like to refer to him, he can confirm all this, the issues we've had with this next door building. So you could just imagine there was only 8 or 9 builders in that building working and talking and whatever they were doing. We could hear them every day, day in, day out. So you imagine if there's 200 people in there, what kind of situation is going to be for us? It's going to be unbearable, to be very honest. And my tenant two of my tenants have already told us that if this music and alcohol license and loud music and loitering happens, we may have to leave. So we're really in a tight situation at the moment. Unless some strict put into place some strict conditions, it's going to be very difficult, to be very honest with you.
I thank you very much.
I will point out, Mr. Lam, music is no longer on the agenda. The applicants have made that clear.
I'm actually referring to background music, and not only background, even background music can be very loud. If you've got 200 people or 180 or what a number of people in there, the music obviously has to be at a higher level for it to be heard. So that's what I'm trying to refer to, basically.
Okay, thanks.
Welcome.
Councillor Straker-Wells.
Thank you, Chair. A few points, if I may. You said the businesses run more or less continuously through the day. Can you be more specific? I mean, what sort of hours are we talking about? 24 hours or less than that?
No, sir. Basically, we operate a wholesale business, and which we supply to shopkeepers, traders, which after they finish their work, they come and purchase their goods from us. So our main trade is done after 6 p.m. And usually that we work till about 9 p.m. Selling to the trade. And then in the busy periods coming up to Christmas, we can even work to 10, 11 o'clock at nights, because that is the way we operate. And now with the new parking enforcement and everything, so everybody's saying we'd rather come in the evening. It's easier for us. So that's when our main hours of trade are. And plus we have a business which does a online business, and their deliveries come after 6, 7 p.m. every evening. So it's a continuous thing.
Thank you. You also, well, I think one of you mentioned the shared party wall. Obviously, it's listed buildings, and there's a limit to what can be done to modify that. But I was given the impression that there were ways to secure greater soundproofing, presumably on both sides. Could you elaborate on that?
Maybe I can help.
Tom can do that.
Yeah, so I run a development company called Tier 7 Development, and we develop buildings, conservation buildings, listed buildings, standard buildings. One of the things that can be done, that should be really done, is there should have been some kind of sound engineering report provided initially, and I'm guessing people in environmental protection will know about this, to record and monitor the breakout noise from that building, and to mitigate any of that noise that would come from that particular building. And there are different various ways that you can mitigate through boarding and soundproofing internally on the party wall. I don't think any of that has been done as part of the construction work or considered. And so that was a big concern at the beginning when we saw the initial licensing requirements to have light and to have entertainment and music. But that's still a concern, because as my brother's mentioned, we can hear light talking and conversations. And if you can imagine 280 people talking, the clutter of the kitchen, the waiters, the running of the business, that's going to emanate through that party wall. So we feel, and I know from experience, that there should have been a level of soundproofing. The noise within that, whether it's a family restaurant, it should just stay within the envelope of that building, and that can be, controlled, and works can be done to control that. And I just feel that hasn't been done as part of the conversion works or considered. So does that help answering your question?
It does, thank you. And Chair, if I may, the last question from me. One of you had made a very strong reference to no faith in the management, which is an offer that's been made by the applicants, that management will be accessible and amenable to any particular suggestions or any concerns. So I wonder what specific measures, you also mentioned conditions and measures, what specific measures do you think would restore your faith in the management?
So, question to me. Right, okay. I mean, the conditions and controls we're asking for are actually from the council in the event that noise becomes unbearable, in the event that there's antisocial behaviour and nuisance. We'd like to feel a level of confidence whereby we know that if there was an issue, the council was made aware of that issue, that the council could then intercept and do something about it. So that's the level of controls we're asking for. So we're asking for conditions or controls. I'm not entirely sure how you would impose them, but something whereby the the council can enforce something as a result of any issues relating to noise, nuisance, antisocial behaviour. With regards to management, well, our experience issues with management, I would say it's more the construction management, perhaps the owners working with their construction team. The issues we've had to date haven't really been dealt with in a professional manner. As a developer, I know if I have an issue with a neighbour, that's my first priority, is to deal with those issues. They haven't been, we've expressed issues. Your own council building control will have a history of the issues that we've had to date. I'm pretty certain they enforced various parts onto that building. They sent some enforcement notices. I'm not sure what became of them, but just the interaction to date hasn't been very good. So we've got concerns because of that. So we're asking for controls in place to monitor the venue next door, and so that we have a level of confidence that if there is an issue, if we go and report it back to environmental protection or environmental health, that there's a control in place that can be actioned, measured and actioned. So that's what we're asking for.
And just to be clear, sorry, Chair, one last thing, just to be clear, the difficulties you've had have been with the management construction, not with the management of the actual establishment. Am I right?
Paul, can I come in, please?
Go ahead, Emma. Go ahead, yeah.
Right, sorry, this is Emma speaking now. Well, I'm there every day, day-to-day basis. The answer to the question is we've hardly, the management people who are there work directly for the owners. The owners we have known for the last 20 odd years. They have never actually been very hospitable to us, in the sense that their building is a derelict building falling apart. But I know we're not talking about this issue, but it's all part of the equation. Whenever we've asked them to do anything, to do works, concrete falling onto the roofs, we've always been ignored. Hence, we had to get the council involved from the dangerous building structure, Mr. Mark Hill. If you have a chance to speak to him, he can fill you in how these people operate. They've even been avoiding his letters, his notices. They just don't listen. Our main issue today is about the alcohol license, which we are talking about. I mean, if you can imagine, there's going to be 200 plus people in this restaurant, and if 100 plus of them have a drink, so the noise level from, say, 1 or 2 then automatically becomes 3 or 4. How are we going to cope with that? That is the main issue here, sir. Not about the management. It's not about the owners. It's about the level of noise. It's about generally about the whole, how these people have run their businesses from day one. We have no faith, and I can foresee a lot of issues going on. At least on Broad Street, if there is some people vomiting on the street, or some excuse my expression, or doing the wrong kind of things on the street, there is someone there to clean it. There's some sort of countermeasure to sort of get everything under control. What measures are there in place here? There's none. And this is our main worries, sir.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for those questions. We now actually move on to closing submissions. So actually, I'm still with yourselves, Mr. Parmlal and Mr. Amar Lal. If you wish to say something in summary, I mean, obviously we've listened carefully to what you've just said. You don't have to say anything, but is there anything you want to say in summarising your position?
Maybe I can go first, this is Palm. So just to summarise, I think we should have controls and measures put in place to monitor any breakout noise from the envelope of that building and any nuisance or antisocial behaviour from that same building.
Okay, thank you for that.
I'd like to point something out as well, please. I mean, this is not a social entertainment area, as everybody knows. This is a commercial area for commercial businesses. If you look around, you'll see a lot of commercial businesses. There is, that's number one point. Other factor is this is going to be a risk to our building. If there's 300 people or 200 people coming into the restaurant, out of those 200 people, hopefully they're all good people, but you're going to get the wrong kind of people. What guarantee is there that our locks and doors are not going to be broken? Loitering's not going to happen. We have enough problems with car parking this is going to even cause us more problems because we have our own car park at the rear. Where are all these people going to park? They're obviously going to park right in front of our doors.
Some of these matters are planning issues which we can't determine, but thank you, Mr. Lala.
It's all a part of the package, if you understand.
We understand your concerns, yes. Okay, thank you for that summary. So I'm going to go to the applicant's representative now, Miss Brenton. And Miss Brenton, if you could particularly address the noise concerns that have been raised and the possible mitigation measures.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. I was actually going to ask if I might be able to have a sort of 10 to 15 minute break at this stage. I want to consult with my clients about a number of issues that were raised by Mr. Lal and Mr. Lal. Would it be possible to pause for a period of 15 minutes and resume at that stage?
Colleagues, I think that might help the deliberation. Are you happy to do that? Yes, okay. So if we say it's almost 1, so if we say we'll adjourn until 1:15.
Yes, thank you.
And then we'll see everybody back in the in this meeting. Okay,
Yes.
we will do.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So if we pause the live stream. Can that be done?
It's resumed, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this is the resumed hearing of an application by Taylor and Challen of premises at 48 Constitution Hill, ground floor, Hockley, Birmingham, B19 3JT for a grant of licence, and we just adjourned to allow Miss Brenton, who represents the applicants, to Kate.
I think.
Have we lost Miss Brenton?
Yes, we have, Chair. Let me try and get her back in. Hold on.
Hello. Hello, Councillor Davis, can you hear me? Because I'm afraid that we've been having some trouble hearing you for the last minute or so.
I think he's. I think he's. It's frozen his screen.
Yes, that's certainly what I'm getting. My end. I understand my solicitor is the same.
We are also missing the committee manager who's trying to get back in. Hold on, please.
Thank you.
Do we pause the live stream and then come back again or not?
Okay, am I communicating okay now?
Yes, Chair, but we've lost Katie Townsend, I'm afraid. I'm just ringing her now. Hold on. You may wish to just pause the live stream if you don't mind, Chair.
Chair, I'm back. I don't know why, but it cut me out for some reason.
Okay. Well, while Luck's with us, we'd better press on. So over to you, Miss Brenton.
Thank you very much for allowing me the time to consult with my clients. That was very helpful. The first point that I would like to make is as I set out at the very beginning of my submissions, my clients have already volunteered huge concessions in relation to the licence that they have applied for. It went from a licence lasting until 5 a.m, including regulated entertainment and late night refreshment, to one with a terminating hour of 11 p.m. for the supply of alcohol only. Equally, we have offered additional conditions to the committee. I raise this to simply make the point that my clients, I would hope, by these measures have demonstrated the significant amount of respect that they have for the neighbourhood, and to provide the subcommittee with some faith in the management that they will be providing for this premises. It's regrettable with regards to the submissions made by Mr. Lau and Mr. Lau that we have not been able to have a discussion about any conditions that we might be able to agree between ourselves to address the issues which they have raised. Of course, the subcommittee will be aware that any conditions which are added or imposed onto the licence need to be practical and enforceable, and equally they need to be reasonable and proportionate to uphold the licensing objectives. So that the committee is in no doubt, my clients are very well prepared to comply with any reasonable conditions to ensure the comfort of their neighbours when this premises begins to operate. And that has always been their position, as was made it clear in our letter to Mr. Lau, setting out our position. In light of what has actually been said, and in terms of making practical suggestions at this stage, first of all, I'd like to make clear that there is no outdoor area on this premises, and there is no intention that anybody ever shall be eating or drinking outside of the premises. My clients are willing to offer a condition, which is that they will ensure that patrons do not leave the property with drinks, or congregate outside of the building. So in terms of the concerns that were raised about individuals outside the building causing nuisance, that is simply not something that will happen. With regards to the issues about noise, which it would appear have been the focus of the concerns of the representatives, an additional condition which my client is prepared to offer at this stage is that they will keep a written log of any issues which are raised with them about noise within the premises, and they will ensure that this log is made available to any council officer immediately upon request. So the council will be in a position to constantly monitor if there are any noise issues at this premises, and this will complement the condition which we proposed earlier to ensure that all of the neighbouring premises have the direct dial details of the manager and so can raise such issues, which will then be recorded and provided to the council upon request. Councillors, there have been suggestions that there may be antisocial behaviour at the premises. There have been suggestions possibly of vomiting in the streets, possibly of criminal damage. As your councillors, you will be aware, there needs to be an evidential basis before any measures are taken in respect of the application. And it would be my submission at this point that there is simply no basis on which the council should consider that that is likely to happen. This is intended to be run as a family restaurant. People will be entitled to go in and just order a drink, but it will be by table service only. This is simply not that kind of establishment, and these suggestions are no more than suggestions, and they're simply not a proper evidential basis on which to consider that. In relation to the issues which have been raised by Mr. Lal with regards to building issues, I understand that and the question that was asked by the learned councillor about exactly who it was that they'd been in contact with, I've sought clarification on that. They have been in contact with the contractor who is running those works only. They have never directly communicated with my client with regards to those issues. And as I said at the very beginning of this, my clients have in their conduct, by limiting the scope of this licence application and volunteering so many additional conditions and offering to engage with the representatives in discussions, they have demonstrated in my submission their respect for the local neighbourhood, and they have given you every grounds to have faith that they will operate this premise properly in a way that upholds the licensing objectives. Councillors, simply to round off very, very briefly, my clients are clearly willing to work to ensure that the premises runs without any disruption or disturbance to the local neighbourhood. They would have no interest in causing disruption or disturbance to the local neighbourhood, as that is the area from which they expect their customers will be drawn. It simply is not their intention, and they are very, very reasonable and very, very willing to do whatever it takes to ensure that that doesn't happen. In addition to that, we have offered the extra conditions, in particular the noise log, which will give the council additional powers to go in and ensure that this premise is operating correctly, and if it is not, to take any steps. However, it would be my submission that no such steps are likely to be required, and the suggestions made by the applicant are sufficient for the council to be confident that this premises will operate in a way that will uphold the licensing objectives. Now, councillors, do you have any questions for me? Otherwise, those are my submissions.
Well, this is a summing up, so we wouldn't normally come back to you. Unless you wanted to comment on the specific point about soundproofing the party wall, which appeared to be a major concern of the parties, of the representations from the other side.
Yes, councillors. Well, I have heard what was said by Mr. Lal in relation to that, and it may have been that had we been able to have a discussion, a condition or something to that end could have been worked out, or steps might have been taken. At this stage, the conditions which I offered are all of the conditions which the applicant offers at this point, but as I've indicated, will be willing to comply with any conditions which are imposed on the licence, which the council considers reasonable and proportionate to uphold the licensing objectives.
Okay, thank you very much for that submission, Ms. Brenton. That's very helpful to us. Okay, so we are actually at the point of deliberation. Let me get back to my process. And so what I'd like to do is ask all parties to leave the MS Teams meeting, and the members of the committee lawyer and the committee manager will go into private session while the subcommittee makes its decision. and you'll be notified of the decision of the subcommittee within 5 working days. So can I thank everyone who's made a contribution today? We will obviously be now adjourning to make our decision.
Councillor Davis, before we go, can I please just make one point?
Well, it's the end of the proceedings, Mr. Lowe. You had a summing up.
Okay.
And if you say anything else, I'll have to bring Miss Brenton back in.
Yeah, it would be nice.
It's,
because she had the opportunity to speak to her clients, so we should have the opportunity to reply the answers.
Well, anyway, we've proceeded as we've proceeded, and there is an invitation from the other party to have a conversation, but we have to make a deliberation on the basis of what we've heard at the hearing today.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Before we go, I'd just like to make one comment. Your neighbours are supposed to be your best friends, right? And in this circumstance, I think this is not the case. We've heard all the representations, yeah, okay. And you had the chance to make summing up in a closing submission. We did hear from you, so I'm going to close the proceedings now. We're going to go into the deliberation session, and everyone will be notified of the decision of the subcommittee within 5 working days. So thank you everybody for your participation today. Thank you.